Welcome to our listening comprehension exercise about an inspiring community transformation. Today, we'll hear the story of Riverside, an old industrial neighborhood that faced serious challenges. The area had been neglected for many years, with abandoned buildings and empty lots filled with trash and debris. Crime rates were high, and residents felt disconnected and hopeless about their neighborhood's future. But one person's passion for gardening and community would change everything. This is the story of how one neighborhood transformed from a wasteland into a vibrant, thriving wonderland through the power of community action and determination. Maria Santos was a retired teacher who had lived in Riverside her entire life. She loved gardening and believed deeply in the power of bringing people together. At a neighborhood meeting, Maria stood up and proposed a bold idea, converting an abandoned lot into a community garden where residents could grow vegetables and flowers together. Many people in the room were skeptical. They doubted whether the plan would work, worried about funding, and questioned whether neighbors would actually participate. But Maria was determined. She began organizing volunteers and reaching out to local organizations for support. Slowly, despite the doubts and challenges, people started to believe in the vision and began to join her cause. The first growing season was challenging. Volunteers worked hard to clear the abandoned lot, removing trash and debris. They built raised garden beds from donated materials and prepared the soil for planting. Local residents, including children from nearby schools, came together to plant vegetables like tomatoes, beans, and lettuce, along with colorful flowers. The soil conditions were poor after years of neglect, but with determination and hard work, the first harvest came in the autumn. Though modest, this initial success was powerful. It proved that the project could work, and it gave residents hope and pride in their community. Neighbors who had been strangers began to know each other, and something special was growing alongside the vegetables. By the second year, momentum was building. More volunteers joined the project, inspired by the success of the first season. Additional abandoned lots were converted into gardens, and the project expanded throughout the neighborhood. Local schools became involved, with teachers bringing classes to learn about plants, nutrition, and ecology. More businesses noticed the positive changes and began donating supplies, seeds, and money to support the gardens. A grant from the city government provided additional resources. The gardens became more productive and more beautiful, with flowering plants creating colorful displays alongside the vegetable beds. Young people who had felt disconnected from their community found purpose in the gardening work, and elderly residents shared their gardening knowledge with younger generations. By the third year, the transformation was remarkable. The neighborhood had changed dramatically in ways both visible and invisible. Crime rates had decreased significantly as more people spent time outdoors in the gardens, and the sense of community and mutual care created a safer environment. Property values began to rise as investors and potential residents recognized the neighborhood's positive transformation. The city invested in improvements beyond the gardens. A playground was renovated and painted with colorful murals, streets were repaired, and public spaces were cleaned and maintained. But perhaps most importantly, residents reported feeling more connected to their neighbors and more hopeful about their future. The gardens had become gathering places where people celebrated together, shared meals, and supported one another through both challenges and celebrations. The ripple effects of the Riverside Community Garden Project extended far beyond the neighborhood itself. Other communities in the city noticed the transformation and started their own gardening projects, inspired by what Maria and her neighbors had accomplished. Universities began studying the project as an example of effective community-led revitalization. Maria received recognition and awards for her leadership and vision. But more importantly, she had demonstrated something powerful, that ordinary people working together could transform their environment and their lives. The project showed that community change doesn't require massive government programs or expensive consultants. Instead, it requires passion, persistence, volunteer effort, and a belief that change is possible. The Riverside Gardens became a symbol of hope and resilience for the entire city. The success of the Community Garden Project in Riverside teaches us important lessons about neighborhood transformation and social change. First, it shows that local leadership matters. Maria's passion and determination were essential in inspiring others to believe in the project and invest their time and energy. Second, it demonstrates the importance of grassroots organizing, where ordinary community members take action rather than waiting for someone else to solve their problems. Third, the project illustrates how environmental improvements can have profound effects on social connections, mental health, and economic opportunity. When people work together toward a shared goal, they build relationships and trust that benefit the entire community. Finally, the story reminds us that transformation takes time and persistence. But the rewards are worth the effort. Today, 5 years after Maria first proposed her idea, Riverside continues to thrive. The gardens have become part of the neighborhood's identity, and new residents are attracted to the area specifically because of its strong sense of community and commitment to sustainable living. The vegetables grown in the community gardens feed hundreds of families each year, improving food security in an area that was previously considered a food desert. Mental health services report improvements in depression and anxiety among residents who participate in the gardening program. Local schools use the gardens as outdoor classrooms for science and environmental education. The success of Riverside's community garden has inspired movements in cities across the country, proving that even in the most challenging circumstances, communities can come together to create positive change and build a better future for everyone. Question 1. What was the Riverside neighborhood like before the Community Garden Project began? A. It was a thriving commercial district with many shops and businesses. B. It was a neglected area with abandoned lots, trash, and high crime. C. It was a peaceful residential area with good schools and strong community bonds. D. It was a historic neighborhood known for its beautiful architecture and museums. Please select the correct answer. Question 2. Maria Santos, a retired word, proposed the idea of converting an abandoned lot into a community garden. Please fill in the blank with the correct word that describes Maria's profession before retirement. Question 3. Describe 2 ways in which the Community Garden Project changed the Riverside neighborhood by the 3rd year. Think about what you heard about crime, property values, public spaces, and how residents felt. Please provide a short answer with at least 2 specific changes. Question 4. What was the broader impact of the Riverside Community Garden project? It only benefited the people who lived directly in Riverside and had no wider influence. It inspired similar projects in nearby neighborhoods and changed how people viewed community development. C. It led to most neighborhood residents moving away to other areas. D. It caused serious conflicts between longtime residents and new residents moving into the area. Please select the correct answer.